Welcome to This Week in Habsland. I am Jordan and he is Brian, and we are here to discuss our Montreal Canadiens and Team Canada, but we'll get to that in the second half of the episode. Brian, in another week dictated by the Habs goaltending performance, can we now put the 1A label on Jakub Dobeš? I recognize we're slower than most on some of this stuff, but Dobeš, and actually at the top of this episode, we'll mention recording before the Sunday night game. The scheduling gods just really hate our recording schedule, so this next couple weeks are going to be a bit bumpy. Hopefully not too much changes, but at least for Saturday night, it meant Jakub Dobeš had the 14th start before Monty got there. Monty's at 13. It'll be 14 after Sunday night. But to you, is there a bit of a shift now? Is this the week where it kind of, even Marty's kind of breaking it, and we've shifted from starter backup to 1B, 1A to now is Dobeš 1A?
Dobeš is 1A. For Marty, for me, I don't know, for you, you can speak to that, but for the fan base, like you said, it's been a long time coming. For us, I think rightfully so, gave it more time because of all the time that Montembeault has put in and all the good hockey that he's played over the past few years behind a bad team. So we gave him that. That, to me, the hourglass kind of has run out at this point, because just from an eye test perspective, like forget the numbers. I went in at the beginning of the year defending Montembeault, 10 games in, six of his games, something like that, to say that, look, the numbers are not exactly reflecting what's happening there, the eye test, because, this was a double deflection, that was a double deflection. I went through a list of all the goals, and, it was pretty exhaustive. And what I was trying to prove basically was that it wasn't his fault. We've seen several games now where a lot of the goals were his fault. Were there any goals in the Ottawa game that he couldn't have?
I mean, at least 3 of them were absolutely, definitely on him, including the opener, which kind of didn't set the tone, but that is the epitome of a backbreaker goal. Your team's playing better, your team takes the lead, and you barely blink. It's the worst thing in hockey, I find, when the home team is announcing the goal scorer. You have the PA saying who scored the goal, and during that announcement, the away team scores.
Yes.
And that's what literally happened. It's such a deflating moment. And that, to me, that kind of set the tone for the rest of the game. Look, Ottawa revved up and became the better team. But what we don't know is if Monty stops that easy shot, does that delay it for 9 minutes? Does Ottawa not really get their sea legs into the middle of the second period, which in hockey can make the difference with one team winning or losing, but Monty giving up that goal right away.
Yeah.
It broke it. And look, you did the exercise a month ago about the deflections. I did it a couple weeks ago with the saves by zone and how that was trending. At this point, Monty's sitting still at an 860 save percentage. It's enough evidence to clearly say now, unfortunately, the Canadiens have so many back-to-backs, like we mentioned, for the month of December, that Dobeš will not really be able to get 60% of the starts. And I still think there's a part of Marty that believes Dobeš probably can't get 70% of the starts going forward. I don't think, rightfully so, that Marty believes that Dobeš can take on that much of a load. And that's why you still need Monty. And that's why it's okay, here's a start. Hopefully it doesn't go, we need you to be able to get another 20 starts this season. December doesn't look like there'll be much of a roadmap. It'll be interesting to see when there's no back-to-backs what happens. But I do think the tide is slowly turning that there's only so long you can wait. And Dobeš has bounced back enough now. I think that save percentage is still under 900, but in modern day hockey, a 900, a 905 is a really good save percentage, right? If you're in the 910 range, you're a Vezina candidate. It used to be 920, 925 as a Vezina candidate. Things have changed over the last 10 years. That 910. So that means, again, the number moves. So getting to 900 is actually quite decent, especially on this type of Montreal Canadiens team. So something interesting to track, but I don't know if we'll be able to fully witness that 1A, 1B shift just because of all those back-to-backs.
Yeah, the back-to-backs make it impossible, but that's fine. Marty played things the right way in order to account for the back-to-backs at this point. Letting Monty still keep the net, not giving Dobeš too much. Can you imagine when everybody was clamoring for Dobeš to get all those starts about a month ago? Okay, let's say Marty does it. Maybe we win one more game than we did, or 2, something like that. Suddenly Monty's cold, Dobeš has been overused, and then you've got all these back-to-backs and neither goalie's playing well. That could be a recipe for disaster. So I do think he played it the right way. it's a tightrope. We keep saying that it's a difficult thing to do. On their progression and on the way that Dobeš and Monty are both playing, one is very clearly regressing, has regressed, let's say, in Montembeault. The other one I think is progressing in Dobeš. I talked early on this season about how even as early as the preseason, it was really clear that his movement was much more controlled. His going post to post laterally was so much more controlled, where last year he was swimming a lot. He's swimming a lot less often right now, and he's able to make that second save or the cross crease save. By the way, a ridiculous one in the Toronto game on Saturday night, literally a game saver. I mean, at any point in that game, making a save like that would have been a game saver, but the timing was great. It's just it was a 1-1 game going into overtime. So that was huge. He comes across the crease and saves it with his face. Way to use your head, buddy. That was awesome. And then the other thing I'm noticing, so that like the crease movement is excellent. We've seen that all year. The other thing we're noticing, you had mentioned rebound control being brutal to start, which very fair. That's his one kind of weak point. Monty's is the screen shots from the point. Dobeš, it's the freezing. He's aggressively freezing pucks now to the point where I looked at the stat earlier. I don't have it in front of me, but it was something like he freezed the puck 13 times in the Toronto game, and expected freezes were like 8 point something, which means he's freezing the puck more often than quote unquote he should be or could be, which is allowing the Montreal Canadiens to change, which especially in the second period, we've seen what the long change does to the Habs. So like in terms of game management from the goaltending perspective, his freezing, his movement, he's progressing in a big way. He's 24 years old. He's got a ton of runway left, and he's in real time developing in these really positive ways. Whereas Montembeault's not doing that. So to me, that's just another kind of feather in the cap of Dobeš of like, here you go, buddy, take the starter role. By February, March, when we actually stop seeing these back-to-backs, and yes, it is that far in the distance, by that point, after the Olympic break, let's say, it might not be a 1A, 1B. Monty might be the backup, and Dobeš will probably be the starter.
Yeah, and also on Dobeš, he's a feisty one in net. We're seeing more.
He is.
Which
I love that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's playing with fire a bit, but that's a discussion for another day. It might bubble up. Let's go to our headlines.
Let's do it.
So my headline this week is pulling teeth, and that's what it feels like right now for the Canadiens offensively, which fully recognize me saying this right now, Sunday morning, means they're going to score 6 goals Sunday night.
Well, they are playing the Blues, so chances are.
I wonder if it's going to be a
Binnington
Monty thing, but we don't have to get into that because by the time people hear this, it'll be in the past. Habs have only scored 7 goals in the last 4 games. And I think a really good, like we just talked about, and I want to start with the goalies because it is a different version of this conversation where like the team can be playing well, like the engine can be operating properly, but then one weird deficiency happens and everything kind of falls apart. The game against the Leafs probably should have been 3-0 going into the third period, just based on the quality of shots the Canadiens were getting and how much better they were playing than the Leafs in Toronto. But it was only 1-0 because they couldn't finish. The amount of times Caulfield either whiffed on a one-timer or there was something coming around the side and they just miss it on the wraparound, and a few too many muffins from the point, from my opinion. There was one Dobson one where he was like, no one's shooting on this power play. Fine, I'll do it. And it was obviously a very easy shot for, was it Hill to be in net? So, so 2 goals against Colorado. They get the 2 goals against Winnipeg, 2 goals against Ottawa the night before, and then just the 1 against Toronto. I'm happy they won the shootouts. I despise them, although I'm happy we got to see Alexandre Texier's just
that. Yeah. What a move. So first of all, the courage with which he went in there to try a move that no one should ever try, which is the one-handed backhand, and the control that he had. So you'll notice if you watch the replay in slow motion, you'll see it's not just one of those like Datsukian push the puck in with the blade and the puck stays on the ice the whole time. He flips the stick. He rolls his wrist so that the backhand of his stick flips the puck up about a half a foot to get below the pads but over the stick of Hildeby, who Hildeby was sick, by the way. He was really good. So to beat him, you had to do something crazy. Caulfield and Texier both did in the shootout. Texier, oh my God, dude. I was like, okay, why are they putting this guy again? I know he's skilled, but then the announcer, basically as he's going up, goes, yeah, he's silky smooth. All the Habs players are really excited to see him in the shootout. I was like, okay, a new guy. All right, let's see.
Yeah.
All right, I know why now.
Yeah, it's almost disrespectful to try that type of shot. and I loved every second of it. But ultimately, like, I think they were the better team against Winnipeg. I think they were the better team against Toronto. It would have been disappointing to not walk out with 4 points in those 2 games. They were definitely outplayed by Ottawa this week. So 4 out of 6 in these 3 games makes sense. That said, Toronto shouldn't have been that hard, and even Winnipeg probably shouldn't have been that hard. You can't be like, oh no, we got goalied by Mike Comrie. Like, no, that's your own fault for letting something like that happen.
Of course.
So, and I do kind of find it funny that during this stretch where it's like, we should be scoring more goals, but we're not, that Juraj Slafkovsky has been their best player. Because I've been saying that about Slav all season, how it feels like he should have put more pucks in the net. Now his counting stats are starting to match the pace that he should be at. He's probably still underrepresented now that he's up to, I believe, 16 points in 27 games. And even the power play, like, power play still looks good enough, but it's in one of those swoons again where it's just starting to fall off a cliff. Anyways, point is, this is a team that's 9th in the NHL in goals and 29th in shots per game. And the latter is becoming more apparent in these last 4 or 5 games. And I think just something to monitor. What have you been seeing that's like, because I have other stuff that I'm holding on to for now, but what is catching your eye in terms of, like, why are they struggling to put the puck in the net?
A complete lack of depth scoring. You pointed out Juraj Slafkovsky being one of the prime point scorers, goal scorers in general. 3 goals in his last 5 games, 3 assists in his last 5 games per 6 points, and that's a point streak, and that's excellent for Juraj Slafkovsky. Cole Caulfield's on a point streak. Suzuki had a really long one recently. Like, the top guys are putting the puck in the net, and also Ivan Demidov. In the Colorado game, he put one in. It was Suzuki and Slafkovsky in the Ottawa game. In the Winnipeg game, Slav and Kapanen with Demidov assisting. Like, it's all first and second line. That's all it is. Nobody else is scoring. So you're top heavy, like, absurdly so. The bottom 6 is doing nothing in terms of offense, but at least the top 6 is scoring. Like, can you imagine if the top 6 was cold right now? We would lose all of these games something to 0.
Yeah.
So that to me is what it looks like. I'm going to talk about the lines a little bit more shortly, so I'll leave it at that for now. But thank goodness for Juraj Slafkovsky on the power play. That bumper play where he's in front, he sneaks in there, and I don't know how a 6'4" dude who's like 240-ish pounds sneaks anywhere, but he does it real well. And then Caulfield gives him the bumper pass. Just excellent stuff. Thank goodness for Slav. He's been amazing. You're right to say he's been the best player for both teams on a lot of nights, with the exception of the Toronto game. That may have been Scott Laughton, which, if a Toronto-Montreal game, Scott Laughton is the best player on the ice, what is happening? He was excellent. He's, you know what? He's actually, as I think about it, the exact thing we need in our bottom 6.
I think there has to be some leeway given about the fact that Alex Newhook and Kirby Dach are out. So, like, blanket statement on that. However, yes, it's the bottom 6. I've been banging the drum on this now for like 3 weeks. It's only getting louder. Gallagher, Anderson, Evans, Veleno. 4 guys that have basically played the entire season in the bottom 6. Other guys have filtered in and out. Those first 3 guys have played every game. Veleno didn't play in the first 5. He's played the next 22 games. So that's basically been 4 of your bottom 6. Excluding empty net goals, they've scored 9 goals in 27 games. That's not enough. Beyond that, like, who else is sneaking in here? Owen Beck, Joshua, Jared Davidson, Florian Jacki combined for 17 games and 0 goals. Okay, so that's almost another full roster spot not taking up any space. And out of the Zach Bolduc stuff, and I know you want to talk about the top line, and Bolduc kind of figures into there, so we don't have to touch on Bolduc that much. Only 2 of his 6 goals have been as part of the bottom 6. He has 3 on the power play, and he had 1 when he was part of the top line. So even him, which again I recognize, like, maybe 10, 12 games, 15 games probably, because it's been confusing. What's a first line? What's a second? Oh, what's a second line? What's a third line? Only 2 of his goals have been as part of it. So when you take out Kirby Dach and you take out Alex Newhook, I recognize Newhook was a second liner. Dach was third line, let's just say. It's been the lack of, like, what the hell is the third and fourth line doing? And truthfully, it's the Veleno line that I have way more concerns about. And yes, guys get healthy. A lot of those players become scratches, probably including Veleno, I would presume. But that's where it is. Like, part of the pulling teeth part is you don't have Emil Heineman there to score a dozen goals. You don't have Yoel Armia there to score a dozen goals. And slowly that erosion, we talked about Gallagher last week, how there were more plays too on Saturday night where he makes some good ones. He makes some right moves. Like, the passing is still there. The passing is still there on the power play. Like, he knows where to go. And actually, about the power play, you were mentioning earlier with Slav at the bumper, it feels like we're watching a team learn how to use the bumper spot. for the first time in a while. There was some plays on Saturday night where I forget if it was Caulfield or Suzuki, but someone tried a pass to Slafkovsky at the bumper. It doesn't go through, but it's like, hey, at least they're trying that instead of just continually pinging the puck around the perimeter. Wow, it's really good alliteration. It was like, okay, let's actually try the pass to the bumper. And obviously there's sticks there everywhere, so they don't utilize it properly, but at least they're trying. It feels like they're like, we have to use this. This is part of the reason for like the blockade. And anyways, so yeah, it's the bottom six. The bottom six it's been blinking red lights for me for a couple weeks now of like, you need to get something out of it. And maybe there's just too much talent drained there year over year. And like I mentioned, back Roy, Davidson, Flo, 17 games from the next generation, nothing from a goal standpoint. And that just means they're certainly not ready to take on that role full time. Doc will get healthy. Newhook will eventually get healthy. Things will shake out a bit. It doesn't mean that the alchemy and the synergy in that bottom six doesn't need to be figured out, because it does. It's not just talent's going to trickle down. But so there's a bunch of things. But yeah, bottom six to me is you're missing a bit of a baseline there of just, I don't know, half a goal a game.
Half a goal a game would be lovely. Seriously, that could have been the difference between giving Toronto the extra point or not. That could have been the difference between going to shootout with Winnipeg. So with that, Jordan, I think that's a really good time for me to jump into my headline, because my headline is talking about the 4 forward lines and how different in terms of quality they really are. So my headline is reunited and it feels so good. Slaf is back on the top line, and it seems to me that it was almost out of necessity because Zach Bolduc just cannot defend. He just can't. At this moment, look, Caulfield couldn't defend at the start of his career. A bunch of guys couldn't. Now he can. Maybe Bolduc can eventually. But it was clear as day that when the Habs top line of Bolduc, Caulfield, and Suzuki was matching up against Ottawa's top line, who are sick. It pains me to say that, but they're just very good. That Pinto line is really, really good. He could not defend them. He left guys open in the slot. It led to goals. And yes, we were talking before that some of those were Monty's fault, but a guy left alone in the slot, often they're going to score no matter what your goalie's doing. So you can't have that. So he gets demoted, and not just demoted, like fourth line, figure your crap out. You're nowhere near. You're not sniffing the top six anymore, buddy. Sorry. In comes Texier to the second line. Up goes Slaf. And suddenly, maybe a little bit of consistency here. We have Evans, Anderson, Gallagher back together, who just eye test-wise, I thought looked fairly good against Toronto. Toronto, in general, I thought had a very bad game, so this might be the worst possible time to make declarative statements about the top six and then the bottom lines or anything Canadiens related about such a small sample size against the team playing poorly. But that's what we have to work with. So let's look at it. I thought Anderson, Evans, Gallagher looked fine. They looked decent. They looked how that line looks, a veteran line that knows each other, who defends decently well, somewhat okay chemistry, north-south, whatever, that's fine. I'm kind of happy that that's back to normal. The Veleno line was okay. They were actually unbelievable in the Winnipeg game, so I'm going to get to some stats now, some expected goal percentage stats, something that absolutely astounded me. The Canadiens line, so 60% expected goals percentage for Texier, Kapanen, and Demidov in the Winnipeg game. That was kind of surprising. The top line, only 49%. Gallagher's Evan Anderson, 59%. Davidson, Veleno, Bolduc, 94%. Unreal. And he's taking defensive zone draws. So it's not like, his Corsi was fairly high, so I think he had a bunch of offensive zone draws too, but still, that was quite impressive. So that to me is like, all right, look, the fourth line is fine, the third line's fine. And then flip to the Toronto game, and it was basically the opposite. 83% expected goals percentage for Slafkovsky, Suzuki, Caulfield. Like, that matches the eye test. That line was dominant. Toronto couldn't do anything against them. And then Gallagher, Evans, Anderson, Texier, Kapanen, and Demidov, both of those lines about a third, like 35, 32%. Not great. But then Davidson, Veleno, Bolduc, 76%. So have we found something for the fourth line? I know it's 2 games. It's a very small sample size. Have we figured something out for the fourth line, please?
I find this fascinating that it's like 4 weeks ago, we had a similar discussion where you were like, the top six is falling apart. What are we doing? And I was saying, the bottom six is falling apart. What are we doing? And fast forward to today, and my headline is essentially about like, you got no support from the bottom six. And yours is like, do we got something with the bottom six? Because the top six needs help.
It's working. Here we go.
And I think that just...
But that's what inconsistency does, man. That's just...
It's exactly what it is. I know I had a headline like this last year of like whack-a-mole or whatever, and I almost got ready to do it again, but I realized I'd done it already, of like a team that's like...
Oh, you fix one problem and you whack it, and then...
A team that's anywhere from...
Up comes another
let's
one.
be generous, 12th best to 22nd best in the NHL right now. Let's just put a very middle of the pack, which the Habs are. This is what it's going to be. You're going to have a game from a certain perspective. You look at it and be like, okay, that Veleno line looked nice. And then you can look at it with other numbers, with other games, and you're like, wow, that's an AHL line. Contrastly, you can look at the Habs first line with when they had Bolduc there. I think everyone was like, this isn't really working. What are we totally doing? But also at the same time saying, it's kind of nice seeing Slaf by himself, that he can kind of pull it off now. This is what I don't even know if it's an inconsistent team. It's an imperfect team of these are kind of the options at your disposal. So you can maybe slowly fix one thing. And while that thing is about to be fixed, or maybe it starts to overperform, something else will underperform. And so it's kind of all over the place. Your headline ultimately was about the first line coming back together. And to me, there's a bit of an indictment there of Suzuki and Caulfield of you guys couldn't make it work. And I know like the Bolduc stuff is interesting. Like, what are we doing with him at this point? Now he's on the fourth line. I'm worried he's slowly falling into a Marty doghouse, but...
Oh, he's in there, man. He's in the doghouse.
Which I don't think is his fault. I think the fault is there's no right spot to put him in right now because there's no real third line. That's where he belongs, which is Kirby Dach, right? Again, like there's injuries. Hands up. I agree that there's an injury there. He needs, once Kirby Dach is back, I think Bolduc has a more appropriate spot in the lineup.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think...
I will say, though, regardless what line a player is on, they have to defend or else they're a liability. So where are you going to put a liability? Where they'll play the least, on the fourth line. That's why Bolduc's on the fourth line. That's really, honestly, all it is. Because offensively, he was starting to make it work with Caulfield and Suzuki. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't like Slaf was there, but they were starting something. I also think it's interesting from the perspective of Slafkovsky how much better he's looked with Suzuki and Caulfield, not only because he's back with them, but because in only a handful of games, maybe not even a handful, depends what you consider a handful, the few games he played with Demidov and Kapanen, where he was the veteran and the play driver, what did Slafkovsky learn from those few iterations with different guys, with younger guys who he almost has to take under his wing? And I know Demidov is skilled as hell and Kapanen's figured it out. He's a really good rookie, but Slaf was the vet on that line, the play driver. And then he comes back up to the first line and he looks otherworldly. He looks better than Suzuki. He looks better than Caulfield.
I think what we all learned, and most importantly, the coaching staff learned, is that now you have that card to play with Slafkovsky of, I know if right now he's the play driver on the team. A healthy Kirby Dach, the way we were seeing him move right before he got hurt was like, oh, there's something brewing here again. But I think what ultimately we learned was, Slafkovsky can be on his own line. He still needs talent around him, but he can now be the play driver. So whether he's with Suzuki or whether he's with Kapanen, I think like that's ultimately the lesson. Like I thought it was a little weird that we spent like 3 weeks of like, Bolduc's on the first wave of the power play and Slaf's demoted and Demidov's demoted and then Bolduc's on the first line and Slaf's on the second line, and now it's all just back to normal after 3 weeks. Like it's where we started, but
we learned a lot.
We
learned a lot. Slaf learned a lot. We learned a lot about Bolduc and how he can't be trusted defensively, and that's what he has to work on. And we learned that Slafkovsky and Demidov actually have a good amount of chemistry together, and paired with like the trio of Hudson at the back end with those two guys was pretty exciting at times. So there's something there. It begs the question too. You mentioned Kirby Dach. What's the only other player, and I just gave you the answer, what's the only other player that with Suzuki and Caulfield worked for an extented period of time? It's Kirby Dach.
Yeah, and that's the door that's opened now because of the Slaf,
right?
Semester abroad with Kapanen and Demidov.
Right.
Now we know, okay, we can move Slafkovsky and not worry about him being okay offensively. And I think that's what we're building towards. Again, the issue is like, and I wonder how much of this is going to fall on Marty. Like, I get it, your dudes are out, but you need to adjust what you want your third and the fourth line to do. Specifically the third line. If you're going to say Evans, Anderson, Gallagher, whatever, like maybe not your third line, whatever, the other line, you need to adapt how that line plays now while you hold water for Kirby Dach at least to come back. because then at least some guys will
Yeah.
fall into place. So I think some of it has to go to Marty to be like, okay, you need an intermediate solution right now. It's good you have this new Slafkovsky card to play, but we need all lines to at least not even be rolling, just have an idea of what they're supposed to be doing out there.
100%. I agree with that wholeheartedly. It also prompts this question, which is that, like, do you think Marty's going to continue being cavalier with these decisions of changing things up to try and get other guys awake? Because as we look at it now, all the injuries the Montreal Canadiens have had, all the inconsistent goaltending, inconsistency in terms of the lines, the pairings have stayed pretty much the same, but they've been inconsistent in terms of quality of play. With all this craziness going on, the Montreal Canadiens are still first in the Atlantic in terms of points percentage. So is this like a sign to Marty being like, I can do whatever the hell I want. We're winning somehow. I want to learn as much as I possibly can over the next several weeks, and then we'll make a push with the thing that works best.
I think what we can see is this is the most Marty's toggled with the forward lines in a long time. Last year they very much settled into, like, injuries aside, like they settled into, like, we know what the first line is, we know what the second line is, third and fourth. Second line was an odyssey. We talked about it over and over again. But 1, 3, and 4, there was a very strong, like, this is what the Jake Evans line is supposed to be doing. This is who we want on his wings. This is what the Christian Dvorak line is doing. This is who we want on their wings. Top line is top line. And this year it feels like Marty's still searching. Now, like you mentioned, like the lines have stabilized a bit. Texier's now on the second line. And like Kapanen and Demidov have stuck together throughout. And Suzuki and Caulfield have stuck together throughout. And Slafkovsky is rotating, it seems. And maybe now he's back on the first line. So I applaud Marty for moving it around. I think we need to settle on something, and I'm not sure he's found the right solution yet, which probably, and that goes into like all the Laval guys that have been called up, no one's clicked, and maybe Texier's that guy. I don't think Joe Veleno's that guy, especially like not at the rate that he's being used. I know Marty likes his centers to have some variability with lefties and righties, and that's one of the bigger selling points for Veleno. But so yeah, to answer your question, I think he's going to keep searching until he finds something that works. Because we do know about Marty, once he finds something that kind of works, he'll give them 10, 12 games. Right now, he's not reaching Terrier levels where Terrier was changing the lines every like 2 periods, but it's more dynamic than it's been in the years past.
Yeah, and to a positive effect. We're learning a lot. The team's still doing well. And to address the pulling teeth element, the more consistency they have, the more chemistry they'll build. Hopefully, the less teeth they'll have to pull to score goals. And huge, hopefully, to tonight, which you already all know what happened as you're listening to this. So laugh at us if you want. But the St. Louis Blues are the weakest team in terms of goals differential with minus 28, 101 goals against. So come on, boys. Score some goals tonight, please. We will see. Shall we jump into our second topic, which is going to be a huge amount of fun?
Yeah, let's march into the Thunderdome. So Brian and I are going to, we have tried to keep our Olympic discussion minimal. I have personally mocked other podcasts and news outlets that have been doing. There was one specific podcast that did a Olympic preview the second week of the NHL season, and I was like, what's wrong with you? The hockey actually just started. We don't need to be doing Olympic preview stuff. It's December. I think it's fair to do it now. We're expecting the rosters to be announced by the end of the year. I'm going to guess it's going to be right before the Winter Classic. I think there's a deadline technically on the 31st. So let's get ahead of it now while we're at it. So we're going to do Team Canada. If we have time at the end, we'll talk about the rest of the Habs and how they're going to factor in. We know Slav is there. We know Texier is there, but we'll see. On Team Canada. So here's some elements that we know about the Olympics in general. So it's going to be, importantly, a mixture of NHL and double IHF refs. However, it's double IHF rules. Canada's schedule, their group is Czechia, Switzerland, France, and that's the order in which they're playing. It's a back-to-back with Czechia and Switzerland, so expect a goalie rotation. Day off, France, to finish the round robin. Importantly, no one actually gets eliminated in the group stage. All 12 teams advance to the knockout. However, if you win your group, you go straight to a quarterfinal. There's no brackets. It's going to be purely based on like a jumbled single table. So there's no like strategic, we should finish second to avoid this team until the final and blah, blah, blah. Like run your race, finish top of everything. And theoretically, unless Canada and USA are 2-3, we will not play each other until the final. Okay. Yeah. So that's the main stuff. The topic of the week, Brian, is the ice surface in Milan. So it's going to be about 4 feet smaller. It seems it's not 200, no 200-foot game. It's a 196-foot game.
That's not a big deal. 4 feet less than a regular Olympic size rink. That'll just bring it closer to NHL, right?
They were building it on NHL regulations.
Oh, what a shame, you silly gooses. I think Steve Dangle said it best on the SDP podcast when he said, we were lied to. There are no adults. They don't exist. Because how do you bungle something this hard?
I think it's funny. And here's the thing. There's been whispers about like the NHL not going. And that's coming from ownership trickling down to the media sources. And then you got Nate McKinnon on Saturday when he was asked about it, says, what do you think? His quote was, who cares? So
it is 4 feet. Like, it's not 40 feet.
You're not stopping these guys from going to the Olympics.
Of course.
The owners would find any reason to do so, but you're not stopping these guys to go to their first Olympics in a generation. So I think it's hilarious. I'm curious where the 4 feet are being lost. Is it just going to be evenly spread out? Is it going to be proportionally spread out based on zones? It
should be proportional.
I would hope so.
It should be proportional. They can't just reduce each, offensive and defensive zone by 2 feet, or like behind the net by 2 feet.
That'd be hilarious.
Have guys running into the net. Maybe they'll just do the neutral zone so that the offensive and defensive zones are NHL standard. That would be another way to do it. That would be, that makes sense, But
so we keep that in mind, because 4 feet, I think it's funny. It's 2% smaller. It will make a difference. Ultimately.
Sure. Well, how big a difference will it make? I love the amount of stock now that's being put into by podcast people talking about it, announcers, anything about like there's 4 feet less. So we need guys who are really good in tight spaces. It's not like they're doing a drill. You know that drill that they do where they put every rostered player in the circle and you have to keep your puck and knock other people's pucks away. It's a classic, like, just, get your hands warm drill for the NHL or any hockey team. It's not that.
Yeah.
It's 4 feet smaller. You don't have to alter your whole hockey team philosophy.
Where I could see it playing a difference is a trap, a lower rung team playing a bit more of a trap style because of how much smaller the neutral zone will be.
So if it's purely neutral zone, you're dead on. There's going to be a lot of, New Jersey, Brodeur style.
Well, it's also like
defending.
Canada's in the group with Switzerland, who historically does that. So that's the game that is blinking right now of like, hey, this might be the one where you get goalied and there's no space in the neutral zone. It's all dump and chase and Canada can't do anything. So like, that's purely concern trolling. Like, I have full faith in some of the fastest and best hockey players in the world to figure it out.
Yeah.
Especially it'll be game 2. I'm presuming they're going to get at least 1, if not 2 practices in before, so they can kind of get used to whatever the small differences are. But it's just a note to make that, hey, there is going to be a difference.
Yeah. It'll be interesting. I mean, we are talking about a Team Canada that likely will have to leave off Morgan Geekie, who has 22 goals on the season. Yeah. Like, that's how stacked the offense is. So I'm not too worried about scoring against even a Switzerland team that's going to play that defensive style, because once you reach the offensive zone, someone's going to figure it out. McKinnon's going to blast through to the net and score. Like, we'll be fine.
Okay, so we haven't discussed this ahead of time. So we're building our roster. It's the full 25-player roster. 14 forwards. I wish it was 18. That would have made this a lot easier. 14 forwards, 8 defensemen, 3 goalies. Brian, I'm going to suggest here that we start with the goalies.
Yes, let's go easy, please.
And then we're going to go to the defense, which I actually think is probably the easiest one, although there's still some interesting questions in there. And then the forwards, which is an absolute bloodbath. So,
yes.
Goalies, starter, backup, and spare. That's how we'll do it. I think Logan Thompson, Scott Wedgwood, Darcy Kemper, 1, 2, 3 is where I'm going. Also, I guess reference, like, let's do it from the beginning here, Brian, because you and I talked about this. This is what we would do.
Yes.
What I would say if I was in charge. What Brian would say if he was in charge, right? Okay, because that's why there's no Benner on this team. Anyways, Thompson, Wedgwood, Kemper are my 1, 2, 3 in that order.
Very interesting. So I have something kind of similar. Thompson, Wedgwood, Blackwood, or Binnington is my options for the third. And let me make a case for Binnington. He was exquisite in the Four Nations. Do you give him a, hey, look, you were really great for us. Here's something, buddy. Be our third. Because I don't think he's going to start. I don't think he would even back up the way that he's been playing for the Blues. And yes, the Blues are terrible. But, Thompson's been incredible.
Thompson's been incredible. Darcy
for
Kemper
the
was third
Capitals.
in Vezina voting last year, and he's continued his great play this year. And Scott Wedgwood, Mackenzie
Yeah.
Blackwood. Now, they play in front of the best team in the NHL. It doesn't mean they're not doing their jobs.
Well, they're doing their jobs behind the best team in the NHL, and they're going to be asked to do their jobs behind maybe the best team ever constructed. You know what I mean? Like, not ever, but you get what I'm saying. A team with Crosby, McDavid, McKinnon, Makar, all these gems is going to be pretty outstanding. So they're used to playing behind a really, really damn good hockey team.
Yeah. I think if we can break our imaginary glass for a second here, Thompson's still going to start, right? Benner will be on the team.
I don't know. I don't actually know.
Like, again, the good news is that you have a back-to-back to start, and they're both against the good teams in the group, Czechia and Switzerland. So
Right.
you have an
So you'll
option
see
here
at least two good guys.
of splitting. Again, this is not my team anymore. What I would presume is Thompson Binnington the first two games. And then you can say, you got to give someone the third game. And that'll be the big decision. Now it's against France, who you're going to presume is going to be a game where you have to run it up to finish higher in the scoreboard. So it's not like it's not going to matter.
Yeah.
But that's the way you still give Binnington like a game. You give him the Switzerland game. You give Thompson the first game against Czechia. And then the third game goes to, unless someone faltered really hard, you give it back to Thompson.
Yeah.
Anyways, back to our teams. What's your final
So
call?
Thompson's a lock for us. Thompson's an absolute lock. We both said
Wedgwood.
you had Wedgwood. Yes. Okay. So we both have Wedgwood. Those two are
Yeah.
locks. So between Blackwood, Kemper, Binnington, do we just give it to Binner because we think that's what's going to happen? If it was my team, I'd go Blackwood. If it's your team, you're going Kemper.
And I'm cool with that. I think, again, Darcy Kemper's bad time in Washington, I think, is completely overshadowed what has otherwise been a pretty darn good last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, totally.
So we'll see. Kemper's probably not on the team because of the Binnington part, but this is our team. You're gonna go with the other Colorado goalie. I'm gonna go with Darcy Kemper, and I think that's fine. We know Canada is not going to bowl people over the way they did with Brodeur, the way they did with Price, but
Luongo, yeah, long gone are those days.
Logan Thompson, Scott Wedgwood is for their current form, they're two of the 10 best goalies in the NHL. So I'm happy with that.
Yep.
Alrighty, up to the defense. So
you said this was the easiest. I found the defense really difficult.
I found the pairings
difficult.
quite difficult for one specific player reason. Having said that, my main candidates were the 8 guys from the 4 nations plus Schaefer. Everyone else was kind of a tier below.
Okay.
And the fact that we're taking 8 guys, I'm saying my group is 9. Then I should say that group is. So the for sure locks, I know you're not going to fight me on Cale Makar and Devon Taves as my top pairing.
No.
Both returning. They play together all the time. That's great. The other 7 guys are in some combination: Matthew Schaefer, Travis Sanheim, Colton Parayko, Josh Morrissey, Thomas Harley, Drew Doughty, and Shea Theodore. Those are the other 7. 6 of them are going to make the team. I'll pause there. Is there anyone else you had? It sounds like you did.
There's been a lot of noise about Jacob Chychrun for the Capitals, and I'm kind of fascinated by that.
I'm happy we're doing the Chychrun thing because is he Canadian? Here's my thing. I went down a deep dive and what was going on here. So it looks like, from what I can tell, Jacob Chychrun was born and raised in Florida till he was about 13 or 14 years old, then moved to Toronto to play AAA hockey, and then he played in the OHL. He played in that time for Canada's U18 team and nothing else. He's never been in the Team USA roster. He didn't play the World Juniors. He hasn't been in the World Championships. So as far as I can tell, he can play with either team. But to me, if I'm Jacob Chychrun, if I grew up my first 13, 14 years living in one country, I would.
In the state, yeah.
So I think that's an interesting case. I don't think he's good enough to beat out those other 9 guys. But I agree with you. Then, he was initially on my list, and I just I know he's born in the US, but is it one of those weird things where he's born when, and at 2 years old you move north and that's fine.
Yeah.
Then you can, I think, fully claim dual. But to me, this is way easier of you went through all of elementary school and parts of middle school or high school in the United States, and only when you were 14 or 15 do you move to Toronto because you're really good at hockey. The same way by the way you have, here we go, Brian, Canadian basketball players who move to the United States when they're 15 or 16 years old, because that's where the better programs are. This is 10 years ago or 15 years ago, right?
Right.
So I think those guys would consider themselves Canadian basketball players, not American basketball players. But so that's just, and the U18 part makes it a bit confusing. He plays for Canada's U18s, but
Right. So that's what I was remembering and being like, yeah, he has international experience for Canada. So like, but it was more like there's a lot of noise surrounding him. So I figure I'll mention him. The other guy that's like this is Evan Bouchard, offensive dynamo this year. That's kind of all he does is the offense. So that's another guy that I'm like, there's a lot of noise, but I don't know if I'm that interested in it. I'm thrilled you brought up Schaefer because for me, he's a lock.
Okay.
Schaefer is a lock. You get the young guys in now. I thought about this in two ways, and I'll jump to this now. I was going to do it for Bedard, Celebrini, and on the flip side for like Crosby and those dudes and Marchand. I looked at this in two ways. The young dudes, you want to get them in early so that you don't have a repeat of that Crosby thing being left out early in his career, and then Canada doesn't do it, and Crosby would have helped, blah, blah, blah. But also to like get them ready, because in 4 years, they're going to be the leaders of this squad. Celebrini, Bedard, potentially Matthew Schaefer. So that's number one. Number two is the Olympics has not been around for 12 years. What guys missed their opportunity to be Canadian Olympians that you could put on here now? If it's a toss-up between a guy who's 26 and a guy who's 33, do you give it to the 33 guy because in 4 years he'll be 37 and not able to do it?
Yeah.
Do you try and be like, look, you missed out on 3 potential Olympics. Have at it, buddy. Have a good time. So that's like the Schaefer argument versus I don't even know that any defensemen are in that boat because most of these guys are like early 30s.
Thomas Harley, I guess, is the other younger guy in that group.
I like Harley. He's in mine.
Taves and Makar is my first pairing. And this is where I open the door to some confusion. Shea Theodore is on the team. That's not a discussion point for me.
Yeah, he is, for sure.
Now, Theodore is a lefty who plays exclusively on the right in Vegas. His pairing buddy, Braden McNabb, is also Canadian, to be mentioned. I don't think Braden McNabb makes the team, but like that is theoretically, we know Canada likes to do this stuff of like guys who already have chemistry. We talked about the last year, the Tampa and the Florida guys all playing together. We're doing it with Taves and Makar again. Like Braden McNabb would be interesting. Let's say McNabb's obviously to the side here. What side of the ice is Theodore playing on? Because he's a lefty, but he plays exclusively on the right. And that opens up a world of possibilities with the rest of your roster, right? So a different pairing, I would say, would be Harley and Doughty. I'm locking that in. Give me the vet and Doughty. Give me Harley. They're both really good at the Four Nations. I don't see any reason why they shouldn't be there.
I love that. Let's do that.
Okay, so we have Taves Makar, we have Harley Doughty. I have Shea Theodore on the team. And now we're in the Parayko, Morrissey, Schaefer, Sanheim blender. And 4 of those 5 guys make the team. Well, 3 of those 4 plus Theodore are on the team. And this is where I become a little bit like I have less. Like I don't have Bouchard. I should mention that Mackenzie Weegar was the only other guy I wrote down that too. Like Travis Sanheim's a better version of Mackenzie Weegar. So if Sanheim's already bubble, then Weegar's a step down. So I don't know. So I have 5 guys locked in: Taves, Makar, Harley Doughty, and then Theodore. I don't know who I play with Theodore, and I don't know who my 2 spares are, and that's where I want you to come in and help.
So Parayko I ended up leaving off, and I know that completely goes against my like, hey, he's old. He didn't get a chance to be an Olympian, but I don't put him in that star category of Canadian defensemen, so it's not like he would have been a lock 4 years ago, 8 years ago, etc. So I think I'm at least I'm comfortable leaving Parayko off of it. I know he was a Four Nations guy, played well, but
he would I like this group. He is the third righty to be fair.
He is the third righty. So I'm kind of considering that thing about Theodore where, yes, he's a lefty, but he'll play on the right. So that's sort of how I'm viewing it. But that also means that yet another lefty has to go to the right on top of Theodore, right? Like if he's the third.
It's so Makar and Doughty are on the right. And then we're saying we push Theodore to the right. And if there's an injury, then you are now really hands tied. And who do you know on the right?
You know who is a really good right-handed defenseman, Canadian, who is getting no noise and plays with another really good left-handed defenseman who's Canadian. I think if Matheson Dobson was a pairing as of like 2 years ago and had 2 years worth of chemistry and were at another level, they would be in consideration as a duo because of the way that they play. They're just too green together. And they haven't done it enough.
Dobson has not had a good last 2-3 weeks as well.
No, he hasn't. Not that I think either of those guys were in the realistic conversation at any point, especially Matheson. Dobson should have been at one point, but anyway, I digress.
So can we do Morrissey and Theodore as a pairing then? We pushed Theodore to the right.
I like that.
And then the spares, we'll put Schaefer on the team, and then it's coin flip Parayko Sanheim. I would feel better having Parayko, and you can have
because he's a
Yeah.
righty. So I love the fleet of footness of Sanheim. His movement is really good. Then again, do you want a 6'6" righty frame in a slightly reduced rink?
Yeah.
You know? So at that point, Parayko, Sanheim, I'm good either way. We got Schaefer on the team. I'm happy. I think the rest is gravy.
Okay.
So you take Parayko, I'll take Sanheim, and we'll see what happens.
All right, to the forwards. My goodness.
Oof.
My goodness. All right, and we're going to do lines.
And we're doing this in terms of lines. Yeah.
Which I recognize can make this a bit complicated. So how about this? I'll do my first line. You'll confirm whether all these guys are on the team, and then we can do line combinations. So my first line is centered by the greatest player on the earth with Mitch Marner and Connor McDavid at his wings.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, should Marner be on the team?
He was great last Four Nations.
He was excellent.
In case anyone didn't.
Just this year, because I don't even want him on my fantasy team anymore, let alone Team Canada. So
in case anyone didn't pick up on my little joke there, Nate McKinnon's the center with
of course
with Connor McDavid.
That was not a joke. That was not a joke. McKinnon is better than McDavid this year. I'm sorry.
So that's my first line. I'm throwing McDavid on the wing, saying I don't need you to worry about anything else. Just play with these two dynamos. Now maybe that's not enough. Maybe they can move around. Who cares? But so you only have one. No, who's the real shooter is the question, I guess. If that's the pairing or the trio.
McDavid says he wants to start shooting more. Maybe this tournament is a place to do it. And also McKinnon has more goals than anybody in the league. So I'd say McKinnon's your shooter. 24 goals this season.
McKinnon's your animal. He does whatever he wants to do whenever he wants to do it. So
right. So I think there's an argument for Reinhart as well if you want a little bit more grit.
Yeah. I
think that there's also an argument for the connection that McKinnon and Crosby have. Historically, that's been a duo.
Okay.
Right? Grew up playing, sort of training together. Not grew up because one of them's a hell of a lot older than the other, but they train together in the off season. Like they know each other really well. That's an interesting duo too. But I presume that you just wanted skill on the first line. They go out and do anything, and then Crosby has his own line that's a little bit different identity.
Yes. So my second line is. So I think we all obviously those three guys are on both of our teams. Second line here
of course.
is it's centered around not Crosby, even though he's the center. It's centered around my left winger. I have Crosby at center, Sam Reinhart on the right, and then just, two guys that are smart defensively that can kill you on the offense, and put Macklin Celebrini on the left. If you were ever worried about I don't know if he can play enough defense, fine. You have two of the best defensive forwards Team Canada can offer. He's sheltered.
Wow.
He is fully sheltered on the left. He's not going to be a center. You have Reinhart and Crosby. Feel really good about those two guys defensively. And it's all right, that's our second line. Celebrini, Crosby, Reinhart. Crosby obviously at center.
Wow. Okay, this is cool. I like this a lot. I'm throwing my idea out the window, which is the same idea that everybody has, which is a kid's line of Celebrini, Bedard, and whatever other kid you want. Because that is fascinating.
So did you have Celebrini
on the team? You get some meanness from Reinhart. I had Celebrini on the team. He was I hadn't decided yet if he was an extra or if he was going to be a part of a kid's line, but throw him to the Wolves, man.
But it's
second line. Why
it's
not?
The Wolves, but you have Sidney Crosby and Sam Reinhart as your two other forwards. He's saved.
Now, okay, so here's the question, because this is the discussion that's been going on in Canada for weeks. Maybe not even weeks, days at the very least, maybe a couple weeks, because Celebrini and Bedard have really taken off. That's the debate, Celebrini or Bedard. Now, out of the two of them, I would argue Bedard needs more of a safety net than Celebrini does. So should it not be Bedard on this line, or is he there at all?
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't have Connor Bedard on this team. He was the very last cut. People will hate who my spare forwards are, but this is really hard, man. We are Morgan.
There could be two Team Canadas, and we'd still be struggling for the, what would it be, 14 plus 14 for the 29th forward, the last cut. People would still be pissed off.
I'm happy you mentioned Geeky. He's on the list. He obviously did not make the team, but he is second among Canadians in goals this year. I'm presuming after Nate McKinnon, because Nate McKinnon is first in everything.
Yes.
So Geeky was 22nd on my list. So
it's unreal.
Yeah, I didn't have Bedard on the team. I don't like it.
Wow.
But
okay.
we can get to that when we get to that. So those are my first two lines.
Okay.
Let's keep making our way down the lineup, and maybe we'll start to see some differences on our actual roster.
Let's do it.
My third line.
What's your third?
I don't think people are going to like this. Braden Point, Mark Stone, Brandon Hagel. So now, importantly, Point and Hagel are on the same team. They don't always play together, but there's some chemistry there. I think I saw like 65 minutes, 66 minutes of them having played together so far this season. Mark Stone's come back from injury and been really good. And I think that's a guy you want on your team.
Yep.
This is a bit of a, I think this is a proper third line. Like there's still absolute truckloads of skill, but there's also a bit of a we don't like you and we don't care type of attitude to this third line that in years past, you could tell me that Brad Marchand deserves to be on this line instead of Hagel. But I was struggling a little bit with the lefties and the left wing in general, struggling relatively speaking, with like who to put on the left side here, which is part of the reason I have Connor McDavid as a left winger, which is part of the reason I have Macklin Celebrini as a left winger. Actual left wingers, like it's Hagel and Marchand were really the only two guys I considered who are natural enough left wingers. So Point, Hagel, Stone, were these, who was on the roster? I mean, Point is already on the team. I believe he was one of the first six. So like
he was one of the first six. So I have something to say about that. Stop announcing that many dudes this early because Braden Point should not be on this team.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
3 goals, 8 assists for 11 points in 21 games so far this season.
Yeah.
Slightly undersized centerman who, yes, historically has been a phenomenal center. I don't know if it's just a blip, but there's too many skilled guys that I would much rather have a Nick Suzuki or another center. He's just the guy that comes to mind because obviously we're Habs dudes, but like there's so many more deserving centermen forwards in general than Braden Point. I had him as an extra on my list because he's already been announced, so he's got to be there. He's one of the 2 extras because someone else deserves it more. Bedard, in my opinion, would be the guy, let's say, to add. So that's what I will push back on. Hagel, you could convince me that he deserves to be there, you know, well over point per game, tons of goals. He's the, I guess, bright spot on the Tampa you get in because I'm your coach type of deal. Hagel deserves it. Point, I don't think does. So that's my little spiel about
on
Point.
Point. He is banged up right now. Tampa's very cagey with their injury stuff. I mean, most teams are. I find Tampa's extra. Tampa and Vegas, unsurprisingly, are very cagey about are they missing a limb or do they have a headache? Like we don't know.
Right. Well, so yet another reason that like if you're banged up, there's healthy dudes. We can go through 40 of them. So
we'll see. Like they still have time. He's going to be on the provisional roster regardless. I don't know if this is a long-term injury. I've not followed it that closely. So Point was on your team because he had to. Was Brandon Hagel on your team?
Yes.
Mark Stone?
Brandon Hagel is there. Mark Stone, no, but I'm regretting it. He has looked really good. I was just worried, like, look, he just came back. He's going to be ready. There's still a lot of time till the actual tournament. So he's just going to keep heating up. So I think Stone has to be there. Also, you have all the skill in the world. Stone has, you know, for most of his career has been one of the, if not the best defensive forwards in the game. So let's have Mark Stone in there.
4th line. This is the we don't like the really like we're gonna punch you all in the face, but this is double IHF rules, so we're not really allowed to do that line for me. Mark Scheifele centered by Tom Wilson and Brad Marchand.
Okay, so Tom Wilson, Brad Marchand, I had as well as my 4th line wingers. Nice. I cannot in good conscience put Scheifele on.
We're doing this again.
He's still getting booed. Yeah, we're doing this again. Yeah, sorry. He's still getting booed by Habs fans at the Bell Center, and I am on board with you guys. Boo away. Evans should be on the team over Scheifele. No, I had Nick Suzuki here, and I know that's a homer thing, but I think Nick Suzuki offensively has been phenomenal, and I think defensively he can provide a ton and be a really good penalty killer for Team Canada.
Okay.
So that's why I had Nick Suzuki there.
All right. So, I mean, Wilson is another one of those guys that's like absolutely played his way onto the team. And
yes, he has.
Look, man, like one of the discussions I wanted to have was like, you get speed, size, and skill. What do you want? What do you want to prioritize with this team? Some of these guys have everything. Wilson definitely has the skill and the size, right?
Yep.
Marchand has the skill, doesn't have the size. He's fast enough, right? You have some guys at the top of the lineup that have everything, obviously. As you get your weight down, like what are you prioritizing with what you want on your team? So, okay, so you didn't want Scheifele, I get that. You put Suzuki on instead. So that's one of our early disagreements.
Yeah.
Spares, I know we've talked about them a little bit already. I went with one lefty and one righty just to balance it out. Seth Jarvis as my righty, Bo Horvat as my lefty.
Okay, cool. Those were 2 of my last cuts. I like Wyatt Johnston, but like again, it's you need a razor to split hairs here. All these guys are so close. I love Johnston's skill, and I don't think you can ever have enough of it. Seth Jarvis is a great pick.
He was on the team last year. They liked him, so I'm factoring that in a little bit. He's been good this year. I mean, Carolina's numbers are always good when you look at them, but
they're ridiculous. Well, when I was looking at the advanced analytics, like the expected goals, I forgot to say this about Suzuki, Caulfield, and Slafkovsky. Meant to say it earlier. The only line that's better than them in terms of expected goals percentage this season is that Pinto line that I alluded to earlier. So they're exquisite. And then what I also noticed in looking at that, Carolina has all 4 of their lines are in like the top 20 or top 15, and then 3 of their lines are in like the top 10 of expected goals percentage. Ridiculous. And Jarvis is one of those dudes. So I think you could very easily sway me, Jarvis, over Johnston. Like, I'm not going to fight you that hard. Horvat's been great. He's another one of those dudes that like missed 3 opportunities, might deserve one now.
So am I getting this correct that our 3 disagreements in terms of forward rosters is I have Scheifele, Horvat, and Jarvis. You have Bedard, Suzuki, and Johnston.
Yeah.
Okay. So
pretty darn close for the rest.
And I will say, like,
are we missing anyone obvious that people are going to shout at us for? Like, I'm looking at the Four Nations roster from last year. Konechny, I think, is very clearly off at this point. I don't think anybody's going to fight for him. Anthony Cirelli.
Yeah.
I would leave him. I would put Suzuki over Cirelli for a similar type of player. Like, if you need that kind of defensive guy who can still score, I would put Suzuki. So
Nazem Kadri.
Screw him. That's hilarious, Jordan. He wouldn't even be that 29th cut. He'd be my 50th cut. But anyway.
I'm sorry if you just mentioned him, but Sam Bennett is also, in terms of Four Nations dudes, that both of us have left off I just think he's had too much of a step down this season. And like Florida.
Yeah.
Look, Florida has their 2 best players out right now. It's not stopped Brad Marchand from having a great season. It's not stopped Anton Lundell from having a career year. It's not even stopped Sam Reinhart, who lives next to freaking Barkov, from having a pretty darn good year, right? But Bennett has dropped off considerably. So like your other good forwards, top end forwards, have all maintained. And again, Marchand's actually gone up a level, weirdly, which kind of sucks, but who cares? At least for Team Canada perspective, it's good. Bennett's fallen, like taking a big hit, and he's never been a huge point producer type of guy.
Well, so that's the thing here, is that when you look at Sam Bennett, it's his playoffs, it's the big games that matter, and it's the style of play that matters. And he wins you games not necessarily by what he does on the score sheet, even though he does that too in the playoffs. It's his grit and his energy and his sort of command of the game when he's out there. He's dropped off a little, but like it's a couple percentage points different in terms of points from last year in the regular season. 51 out of 76 games. This year, 17 out of 27. Not drastically different. They're both in like the mid 60s in terms of points percentage. So like he's doing what he does. It's just, it's not that impressive.
Okay. So overall, of the 25 players, we have 5 disagreements, and they're all towards the end. And that is, I have Scheifele, Horvat, Jarvis, Parayko, and Kemper. You have Bedard, Suzuki, Johnston, Sanheim, and Blackwood.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
And you could tell I'm biased, at least in one of those.
Look, I didn't put Suzuki. We can close with the Canada stuff, and then we can quickly do the rest of the Habs. On the Suzuki stuff, like, clearly the idea of him making the team is to be a defensive center. And my only concern is you're building this team to beat Team USA. All right. Like, Sweden's going to be good. Finland's going to be good. Czechia is going to be quite good. Everyone else is kind of, I think, to the side. Like, there'll be a feisty Germany team. There'll be like probably a little bit of feisty. I'm certainly in Switzerland has enough talent right now to be feisty. But ultimately, you're building this team to beat Team USA. I would be worried that Suzuki in a defensively oriented role would get kind of his lack of size would hurt him.
Okay.
Which is why I lean more Scheifele Horvat as basically my 4th center, who you guys figured out while you're there who's your better center. And again, like, so many of these guys are centers that you can move Celebrini around. You can move, of course, Connor McDavid is the secret weapon. Yes. You can just bump him, and Sid's your 3rd or 4th line center and move some stuff around.
That's a classic of Team Canada, by the way. Like, you have 14 forward spots, 8 of them are centers.
Yeah. So because right now I have on the roster 7 centers. And I think you probably have something very similar, because you also have Johnson and Bedard as centers as well. So you have 8.
Which Bedard would be a winger in this, unquestionably so, but he can take draws. So
So that was my hesitation with Suzuki. When you're going to put him in that role where you're playing him 12 minutes, like you need to I'd be worried about the physicality component with Nick, which I'm not to say that he's a small guy, but like you are building this team to beat Team USA, who are ginormous. So you got to be a bit careful.
No, that's very fair, man. Very fair.
Okay, rest of the Habs. Let's do them quickly and get out of here. So Texier's on Team France. Slafkovsky's on Team Team Slovakia. Sorry, do not want to mess those two countries up.
Do not give Texier a breakaway. That's all I'll say to Team Canada. Yeah. Do not give Texier a breakaway. That's it. Then you can beat France easily.
We don't believe Patrick Laine will be on the team. He won't be healthy in time. They're not going to put him on the team.
Yeah. No.
So he's out. Let's do the Team USA guys, Hudson and Caulfield. How are we feeling about those two?
It seems as though Hudson's been written off, and it seems as though Caulfield has been written on. I think that's what a lot of analysts are sort of seeing, at least in this sort of preliminary, like, we still have 30-ish guys left to talk about. Like, Caulfield's still in the conversation. I don't think that Lane Hudson is. They have enough guys that play like Hudson, and he's just on the outside looking in. That's my feeling, at least.
I agree. I think both are not going to make it. Hudson, Caulfield being the way closer, probably final 2 or 3 cuts, whereas Hudson, I don't think it's ultimately that serious. They have already too many small dudes, and they saw it at the Four Nations. They're smaller defensive defensemen, or just defensemen. We're struggling. Adam Fox was struggling. Quinn Hughes was all right if he was playing.
Yeah.
So I don't think either of them make it, and I think Caulfield's a really close call. He has really transformed himself into a more than just a goal scorer in the past 2+ seasons. And I think like it's not just Canadian fans hopium that no, he should be on the team. Like, no, he's more than just a guy who can score 35 to 40 goals. He does a lot more. But again, if you're Team USA, you're building this roster to beat Canada. I don't know if Cole Caulfield would be that effective if every shift you look across the ice and it's Crosby. Like ultimately what they're going to do with the Crosby line, that's going to become a de facto shutdown line when you get to the biggest games. It's going to be Crosby with Reinhart and like Hagel or Tom Wilson or whoever. And like that, they're just going to bludgeon you. And then you're going to have Drew Doughty as well there. Like it's big dudes. So I don't think they make the team. Who else do we got? I guess Jakub Dobeš is one of the other guys that could make the team Czechia.
Jakub Dobeš is, that's fascinating for Czechia just because you think Czechia and you think, okay, that's probably a pretty easy team to put together just from the perspective of like, well, they don't have that many NHLers. They do for goaltending. They really do for goaltending. So like some notable names, Peter Mrazek, not likely making it. He's 33. They're probably going to look to build a new core of goaltenders. His time has passed. Vitek Vanacek, numbers aren't great this year for Utah, but he's still a name. David Riddick, a little bit better for the Islanders. He's doing decently well there, 901 save percentage. There's Jakub Dobeš, obviously. And then you get to like the couple of core guys who I think no matter what will be there. Vladar for Philadelphia has been very good, and Dostal for Anaheim has been very good. And Dostal's probably the future of their program. I think Dobeš is probably maybe on the outside looking in, and then there's also Karel Vejmelka from Utah as well. Vanacek and Vejmelka, the two Vs in Utah, both Czechian. I don't know. It's really an interesting thing. I think if not for Dobeš's difficulties the past couple of weeks, and I know he's had a couple of great games since, his numbers absolutely tanked in November. So like, if not for that, if we were just looking at October and now early December numbers, Dobeš might even be your starter.
So Dostal is their starter. I think very much in the same way Logan Thompson kind of has to be on Team Canada. I think Dan Vladar has to be on the Czechian team.
Right.
So that's 2 spots. And then I think it's Vejmelka versus Dobeš. I don't know. Again, historically, Jakub Dobeš has not come anywhere close to a Czechian national team, junior or senior. I don't know how much that plays into a factor. And if Vejmelka and Dobeš are kind of similar, then they probably lean Vejmelka, would be my guess. But there's still time to decide.
Probably.
I'm going to guess they're still thinking about this one. I think they're likely going to have Vejmelka on the team instead. And maybe Vejmelka ends up being the backup and Vladar is the third. But
could be. Like their numbers are strikingly similar. 894 for Vejmelka, 895 for Dobeš. The one reason they'd take Dobeš over Vejmelka is for the future.
Right.
For the future of the program. Because in 4 years, Vejmelka's 33, and in 4 years, Dobeš is 28, right in his prime.
Yep. All right.
So that to me is interesting. On the couple of stars, I love that, like, Texier for France was easy. A, he was already named, and B, you look at I was like, okay, who else is he going to be the star on France? Yeah, he's the only NHLer currently for France. So that's that's sort of a dream for him to be the main guy. Slafkovsky is going to be a star for Slovakia, the most important member of the team, with the possible exception of Simon Nemec. One of them for the forward group, one of them for the D group. That's going to be outstanding to see. Is Meshar making it? Is he going to be an interesting member of this team, potentially show something that we haven't seen yet in a different environment?
Could be. I'm not going to lie and say I know the Slovakian depth chart that well, but
that's just it.
He's a middle six AHLer right now, which I don't know if that's good enough to make an Olympic squad for one of the seventh or eighth best country in the world. So who else?
I think that might run the gamut, man. I think that's pretty much it. Latvia has Vekvanogs, but I think he's too young. They have other options in net. And then Germany has Handel. And again, for Germany, I just didn't go through their depth chart. Handel is like a 18 or 19-year-old defenseman in the Habs system. So like that's brand new. I bet they have enough veterans in their league that they would pick over him. That's pretty much it.
Too soon for Kapanen, Demidov.
Too soon for Kapanen. Also, like if Kapanen played for like Italy or some crap, like, yeah, obviously he's on the team. He plays for one of the big nations. So good luck to you, buddy. I'm really sad that Austria is not in, because two more stars would be there. Reinbacher and Rohr would be stars. Rohr maybe less of a star, more just like an important element, but Reinbacher would absolutely be a star for Austria if they were going.
All right.
Shame they're not.
Look, we'll know more. We'll do like a proper dive in way closer to the tournament to see what we're looking at. But, you know, as mentioned, that group, it's a bit of a tricky group, especially the way it's laid out with the back-to-back of Czechia, Switzerland, day off, and then France. So you've played your two big games up front, but there's way more than enough talent here to carry you through the group stage. And the important thing is, remember, again, win the group, you make the quarterfinal. That's one less chaotic game of elimination you have to deal with. Anyways, we'll wrap it there. We'll get back into it next week, talk more Habs. So if you like what you heard, feel free to leave a 5-star rating on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can find us on social media at HabslandPod. And until next Monday, go Habs.